This is the second installment of Fireworking 101, the class on safety. As I said in the introduction, safety will be a major focus of a lot of this instruction. In fireworking, one of our mottos is stay green. Back in the olden days, the fireworkers, the sorcerers who worked with sparks and fire, covered themselves with green leaves from head to toe to keep the sparks from raining down on them and burning them. Stay green means stay safe. It can mean stay on the green side of the sod, not on the brown side of the sod. Stay alive. Stay well. To me, it can also mean stay a beginner. It's often said that the worst danger in any activity arises when we become complacent with it. We are dealing with a hazardous, risky art form here. We can't become complacent with it. We have to stay conscious and aware of our environment, of our work, our techniques, our workbench, our surroundings, what's going on. There's a bit of a push-pull paradox in this art form. We want to enjoy it. We want to succeed at it. We also want to stay safe. If we wanted to stay completely safe, we'd stay on the couch watching cartoons. If we recklessly run into this art form without being aware of the hazards involved and how to protect ourselves from them and employ safe practices, we can get hurt. So we have to balance staying safe with enjoying the art, staying safe with enjoying the art and being successful. It's easy to gloss over safety information. You know, when you buy a new tool, power saw, anything nowadays, a pack of balloons, there's a big safety section. The first page in the instructions is a safety section. The first paragraph on the back of the bag of balloons is about how to stay safe with the balloons. Quite often we gloss over them and figure that's some CYA cover their butt corporate jargon that a lawyer made them put on the package or in the instructions. It's not wise in this art form to gloss over the safety information. One of the safest practices is to ask questions. There's a motto, another motto in fireworking is there's no such thing as a dumb question. Asking questions, even if it seems like a newcomer question, a simple question, can keep you safe. It can get a response from somebody more experienced and wiser in this art form that can protect you, that can guide you. Ask questions. The forum in fireworking.com is just a perfect place where 600-700 people gather and are available to share their experiences, ask questions, answer questions, toss around ideas. Is this a good idea or not? Why did this happen? What should I be careful of? I experienced this. What do you think happened? Is it dangerous? Ask questions of a group of fireworkers. Be around people who are a little more experienced and wiser than you to guide you. Don't do this completely on your own alone. Be careful, full of care. If you just had an argument with Honey Bunch and you're wondering why Honey Bunch gets so mad at you when you put the toilet paper roll on going this direction instead of that direction, you're here occupied with, I hope Honey Bunch doesn't dump my butt. Don't work in the shops right now. We need to be focused. One of the pleasant things about fireworking is it requires focus. We're not sitting here thinking about anything else other than what we're doing, or at least we shouldn't be. Stay focused, be careful, full of care for what you're doing. Be conscious and aware and not distracted. If you're distracted, go take care of the distraction first before you work. Get educated. There's a book called Introductory Practical Pyrotechnics by Tom Peregrine, one of the original manuals that was put out years ago to guide beginner fireworkers. Some of the information in here is questionable is brought into question by people who know what they're doing, saying actually some of it's not as safe as it could be, or doesn't lead to as much success as it might. But the first 5 or 6 pages in this book are full of really good, practical safety information. Keep your workplace clean. I'm going to describe personal protective equipment in a minute. There's a description of that. There's a description of how to stay safe out on a firing line in a display. A description of how to stay safe if and when you get advanced enough to start possibly substituting one chemical for another. How to stay safe while doing that. That first section of this book is really valuable. In Fireworking.com, there's a section called Safety. There's an essay from me about safety in an accident I almost had once upon a time that would have definitely killed me. I launched a star from a star gun outdoors at night to see how that star worked, looked inside, looked like the star gun was cool, brought the star gun into my shop, and at that time I was not working with safe work practices. In my shop on the shelves were some trays of drying stars and probably black powder, I don't recall. Went to reload the star gun inside the shop. This is 22, 23 years ago. Put the load of black powder into the star gun, put the fuse into the star gun, reached for the star to load into the star gun, and right before I loaded that star into the star gun, it went off. The black powder in there went off. If I had put the star into that star gun, that star would have launched out of the tube of the star gun, bounced around my shop burning, set off those trays of stars and black powder, and I would have been toast. I'd have been burnt up. I described that in my safety essay. I described some other issues that I'll cover in this safety section of Fireworking 101. Following my essay is an essay from Kyle Kepley about good safety practices. There's an essay from Lloyd Spangenberg about an accident he did have, what he learned from it, what he did wrong. There's other safety information in that section. In the safety section of the forum on fireworking.com, pinned at the top of that section is the 10 Commandments of Safety and a complete list of good safety practices. I highly, highly, highly encourage some bathroom reading before you buy your first chemical, before you buy your first tool. All of this information, once you're in fireworking.com, is available. Read those safety essays. Study the 10 Commandments of Safety. I'm going to go over them real quickly, but it pays to study this stuff. Shortly in this video, I'm going to interject a couple videos that I shot of a tub of black powder on the workbench going off and what that looks like, a coil of black match that we'll be making going off on the workbench and what that looks like. Those are sobering videos. This is a coil of black match, the black match we'll be making. I know what this burns like a single strand. I'll put a snippet of what this burns like a single strand. But if I'm working here at my workbench, have this coil sitting out, let's say, unnecessarily, I've already cut off of it what I want to use, and something happens, something sets it off. I know what a small tub of black powder looks like when it goes off. It's not pretty. But I've never set off a coil of black match. I suspect it's not going to be pretty. I suspect it would ruin my day if it went off sitting on the workbench in front of me. But let's go see what exactly it does do when this whole coil goes at once. Okay, let's see what this coil of black match does going all at once. I'm going to ignite this very carefully. Yeah, not pretty. That going off in your face, there wouldn't be much face left. Just standing above this moments after it went off, there's still a lot of heat radiating off of this. The black match string, the plywood, has absorbed a lot of heat. There's still glowing globules in here. My face, or a fireworker's face, would absorb all that heat energy at once if this goes off in front of them. Many of us have a good pyro acquaintance who got burned extremely badly in a pyro accident and is scarred horribly. He spent a year or two working at recovering from that accident. Had to wear one of those plastic face plates on his face to keep the scarring from getting too bad. I know personally of a half a dozen of serious accidents where one of the major commandments is don't work in your home where if something goes off it's going to burn the house down. Guy was working in his basement, had some rocket fuel spread out on screens to dry. On the other side of the basement, decided to sharpen some scissors on a grinder, was grinding, sharpening his scissors. A spark hit those trays, the trays went off. He was able to get up the stairs, but the house burned down. 10-15 years ago, a fellow pyro, well known in pastfire.com, his whole garage blew up while he was working in it and he was killed. Wasn't killed immediately, came out of the garage probably hoping to die. It was so bad. Just recently, a fellow had his garage blow up. He was working on something, it started to go, he got out of the shop, but it set off some other stuff that was exposed. The garage blew up. He's in some serious legal trouble due to local and state regulations in his state. Many of us can recount stories of people who have had major property damage or have been injured pretty significantly, taking a year to recover from burns in this art. This is not something to become complacent about. It's not something to take for granted. It's not some information to go, oh, it'll never happen to me. I want to move on to making that fountain. Ned, let's go. If I'm speaking to my great-grandsons, if I'm speaking to someone in my pyro community, please pay attention to this. If you can't do this safely, don't do it. The last thing I want on my conscience, the last thing any of us want, is to encourage somebody to do something in a way that gets them hurt or gets property damaged. It pays to get educated. The 10 commandments of safety that are on fireworking.com. Drugs and alcohol don't mix with fireworks. Pretty obvious. It's like driving. You need to pay more attention to working on a fireworks project than you do driving. I'm not going to be working on making an aerial shell and eating a cheeseburger at the same time. I might drive and eat a cheeseburger at the same time. I'm not going to work on fireworks and eat a cheeseburger at the same time. I need to be paying attention. I can't be impaired by drugs or alcohol. Very bad idea. I do have an essay, How I Burned My Hand, on fireworking.com, where I'd had a couple beers. I decided that, I'm going to test a couple stars. I took a couple stars, had 3 of them in this hand, put one down over here, lit it with a torch. Somehow, a spark lit the 3 in this hand, and I've got pictures in that article of my hand after those stars burned in my hand. They probably burned for a second before I even realized they were burning. Oh yeah, it's okay to do that after 3 beers, 2 or 3 beers. No, it's not. First commandment. I have always had to wear eye protection, fortunately. 30 years as a builder, probably 10 times I would hit a hardened concrete nail and have it bounce out and hit my glasses. Grinding on something and a spark or a metal particle hits the glasses and bounces off. I've actually damaged glasses. Something's, hit a 16-penny nail and it ricochets out and hits me in the glasses. Fortunately, I've always had to wear my glasses. I can't see without them near or far very well. My glasses, my eye protection have saved my eyes. The most valuable thing we have is our eyesight. Yeah, my face could get scarred up a little bit. It'd spoil my year. If I lost my eyesight, my life would be drastically changed. Wear eye protection. If you don't have to wear glasses, get a good pair of safety glasses and wear them. Put them on your workbench. The first thing you do when you walk in the shop is put on your eye protection. When I videoed the introduction to Fireworking 101, I had sort of a purple sweatshirt on. That sweatshirt is part polyester, part cotton. Any clothing that is nylon, polyester, rayon, any of those synthetic fabrics, if they're hit by heat and fire, they will melt. They will melt and start to burn, and they will melt onto your skin. In the video where I show the tub of black powder going off, the shirt that dummy has on is a synthetic shirt. It melts. Today, doing this safety demonstration segment, I have a 100% cotton shirt on, long sleeve. I have long cotton blue jean overalls on. I have a cotton hat on. When I'm doing really dangerous things, I will wear leather gloves. These are leather welding gloves, cheap, $5 or $6 from Harbor Freight. They cover my arms up to here. If something goes off when I'm doing anything, pounding a rocket or emptying a ball mill jar, these will protect my hands and actually lap onto the long sleeve shirt, cotton shirt. Even in the summer, it's not a bad idea to wear a long sleeve cotton shirt. That flash of heat lasts less than a second probably, will burn this, will start to burn it, but that flash won't get to my skin. It will protect my skin. Wear cotton clothing. Many, if not most, of the major accidents I hear about are when something fairly small on the workbench, ramming a rocket motor, trying to bust up some dried star cakes, that somehow gets set off and would be a relatively minor incident, except that elsewhere in the shop are buckets with relatively thin lids on them full of black powder or stars or composition, maybe screens or trays full of drying black powder or stars. Besides eye protection and cotton clothing, I would say the number one safety precaution, is minimizing exposure of hazardous materials. When I'm working, I want to look around my shop and say, if this goes off, nothing else can go off. Anything else flammable is in that separate locked building, that separate locked room, that separate locked steel job box down the hall. I don't want anything happening here which would ruin my day to set off anything else in the surroundings that would ruin my life, ruin my home, ruin my marriage. Minimizing exposed pyrotechnic material is just so important. The door to my shop simply is a nicely lockable door, but it swings out. And when I'm working in here, I don't have that latch completely. I've got it open just a half inch or so in cold weather, or I have it swung wide open in warm weather. But it swings out. Something happens in here. My path to that door is clear. The pressure, if anything did start burning in here, would swing that door open, and I can push the door and get out of here. If it's smoky in here, I can hit that door and get out of here. I consider an outswinging door on a shop to be very, very important. I perform as many tasks as possible outdoors. I screen mix composition outdoors. Anything really dusty. If it's a nice day, I'll go ahead and pound rocket motors outdoors, although there is a way to do it where it creates relatively little dust. As much as possible, working outdoors where the wind is blowing any dust away from us makes a big difference. Besides eye protection and gloves, wearing a dust mask or preferably a respirator. Here's a brand new respirator. Here's one that I've used for a year or two working with charcoal, screen mixing compositions. The filters in here are replaceable and are quite grubby right now. If I tap this on the tabletop, there's dust coming out of it, which is good. That dust is not in my lungs. None of the chemicals we'll be using in Fireworking 101 are particularly hazardous, but charcoal especially is a very nasty dust, and I really don't want it in my lungs permanently or even temporarily. We call it the black booger syndrome. If I've been doing something and I go in and take a shower and blow my nose and it's black boogers, I go inside and blow my nose into a Kleenex and it's black. I've not protected myself well enough with a respirator. It takes a little bit of a discipline, getting into the habit to put a respirator on, but man, it saves so much grunk inside my body, and I really don't want that grunk in my body. Safe storage, and even legal storage. In the United States, it's legal to make our own fireworks on our own property. We don't need a federal license. There may be state and local regulations that are different than that, but federally, if we're making explosives, stars, shells, rockets, and we shoot them on our own property, we don't have to have a federal license to do so. We are required to have safe storage. In Fireworking 101, I have an article about how to make safe, legal, approvable storage, compliant storage out of a rigid steel job box from Home Depot or Lowe's. Keeping finished devices, once again, out of the shop and stored safely where they can't be set off by an errant spark, where nobody can steal them and do something unpredictable with them, is very important. Store finished devices safely, and if something's drying, have it in a safe spot, but not in the shop where it can be set off by anything else. I keep a bucket of fresh water, clean water, outside the shop. God forbid something goes off here. It's a small incident, but maybe my hands do get a little burned. I go out there and dunk them into water as fast as possible, cool the hands off. It's clean water. That stops the burning immediately. And I can also just quickly rinse my hand of any crud out there and then change the water and make it clean again. We've discussed it online. Some guys wonder, is it okay to use a dust vac in my shop? No. There's a lot of dust in here that is potentially flammable. Put it into a dust vac where there's static and it builds up in the filter. That could potentially be ignited. I clean my shop with a little hand broom and dustpan, sweep up any excess. I get a wet rag in here and I wipe everything down. I have seen shops where it looks like you could perform an operation in there. They're spick and span clean. My shop is not spick and span clean, but it's relatively clean. I would not be embarrassed to have somebody sit down on the bench next to me or rub their hand across my work table. Covering the work table with paper that can be made dirty in an operation and bundled up and burned in the burn pit outside. Good housekeeping, keeping things clean and organized and uncluttered goes a long way towards safety. I got a buddy, Brian, who says a clean workspace is a happy workspace. A clean job site is a happy job site. Keeping it clean, not using a shop vac though to do that is important. I have a whole article about hot glue safety. At one point when we're attaching rocket headings to rocket motors, I will show the use of a hot glue gun. People have reported, it's been known to happen, a plugged-in hot glue gun being used can short out and send sparks out. Not a good thing when you're using it on an explosive rocket heading or aerial shell. This electric glue gun is kept in a power strip that I can turn off when I'm using it and turn back on when I have it in its garage, where if it sparks, it's not going to cause a major incident. But it's only on when it's in the garage. Is very good safety precautions when using an electric hot glue gun. There are some hot glue guns that actually unplug out of a dock when you're using them. They're not powered when you're using them. Plug it back into the dock to reheat. This is a butane glue gun. It uses a catalytic chamber to heat. There's not a raw open flame exposed anywhere. This is another safe type of glue gun to use, especially out in the field where there's no electricity. Glue gun safety, I would study that whole article about that subject and become familiar with the potential hazards using a glue gun in our work. Naturally, we're always using non-sparking plastic, rawhide mallet, aluminum tooling. We're always using non-sparking tooling when we're working. At some point, we're going to make aerial firework shells and we're going to launch them out of a mortar, either to test them or to thrill our friends in a display. Taking a shooter safety class, the Pyrotechnic Guild International shooter safety class, a local display company's shooters safety training class, is a very good idea. Display site safety, 70 foot per inch of shell diameter set back to any innocent spectators. We're going to be making 3-inch aerial shells. That means we want any innocent audience members to at least 210 feet away from that shell in case something goes wrong when it is fired. Wearing, once again, safety glasses, body protection. Some people will wear fighter turnout gear, padded pants, fireproof coat, a helmet in case something drops on your head, having a water cannon available on the display site to put out any fires, treating a loaded mortar like a loaded gun, never putting any body parts over it. Display site safety is a subject unto itself to study, and a shooter safety class would definitely be a good investment in this art. As I'm going over my outline here for the safety section, there are a couple points I'd like to emphasize. A safe workspace does not necessarily have to be a $3,000 specially built fireworks shop, shed. It can be a picnic table under a pop-up tent if the weather's conducive to that kind of workspace. Having a workspace separate from a residence and not surrounded by anything that could be set off if a minor accident happens on the workbench. It doesn't have to be exotic or expensive, but it should be safe. As I'm working, and it's easy to accumulate excess black powder, excess composition, excess stars, excess rocket motors. I don't like to accumulate and store a lot of excess explosive stuff. I like to get rid of stuff, even if it's in a burn pit safely ignited, if I don't think I'm going to use that stuff in the near future. Not having a large amount of stuff, certainly not in the shop, but even in storage, to me is a safe measure. It gives me peace of mind. As we get more advanced in this art, if you do pursue that, there are chemical incompatibilities. There are chemical dictionaries out there. There are chemical essays. Kyle Kepley's safety essay in the website is one that will list chemical incompatibilities, what you can't substitute for a particular chemical and do so safely. We have to be aware as we get deeper into this whole business that we should ask questions about any possible substitution or change in a formula that we're pondering. Needless to say, as I'm working in my shop or outdoors, avoiding all potential sources of ignition. Potential sources of ignition can be a spark, can be a flame, can be undue friction, especially on a sensitive composition, can be shock if something is hit too hard, can be static if the static charge is induced into a composition. We're going to be working with black powder compositions which are not especially susceptible to shock or static or friction ignition, but a spark or a flame could definitely spoil our day. So naturally, working with non-sparking tools, working in an area completely separated from any potential spark, including an electrical device like a fan or a ball mill if we get into ball milling, or any other electrical device that could, if I'm using a drill to drill something, I want to do that away from any flammables. Avoiding any potential sources of ignition when I'm working on a composition, a component, or a device, be it a spark, a flame, static, friction, or shock. To keep those potential sources of ignition in mind is a very important safety practice. At some point, after we've studied the safety articles in the safety section, we've watched this video, we've familiarized ourselves with safety gear, and we're working in our shop, the most important safety tip is to look around, be aware of what could go wrong. If that goes wrong, what else could it cause to go wrong? Take the precautions necessary to prevent a small accident from turning into a large accident. And being aware, conscious, and careful as we're working. Remembering that at any given instant, take a look at those black powder ignition videos, the quick match ignition video, the shell launched into the chicken head video. At any given instant, if we're not careful and conscious, applying all these safety practices, we can get seriously hurt. Is my gut telling me that I need to stop and I need to clean my shop today? I need to stop and clean up and start from scratch. Sometimes my gut tells me that it's time to clean the shop. It's time to do something to address any safety concerns my gut might be telling me about. So that's well worth some study, some bathroom reading, some pondering, to really soberly get the ramifications of the risks that are inherent in this art form and the safety precautions we can employ to prevent any accident, and especially to prevent a minor accident from turning into a major accident. Disposing of hazardous waste, as I bundle up paper that I have used to cover my workbench, that I have used to screen compositions onto, that I have used to cut stars on. I have a burn pit well away from my shop where I can burn safely, ignited safely, any hazardous waste like that. If I have a batch of stars or a batch of black powder that has gone bad, it's no good. Igniting that safely with a long length of quick match and some visco fuse, remembering what it's like to be near a flame ball that comes up from a bunch of stars as they ignite, that comes up from a bunch of black powder as it ignites. Many injuries are a result of disposing of this hazardous waste carelessly. It can bite us. Disposing of that stuff and not letting it accumulate in the shop, around the shop, is a good safety practice. So enjoy this art, stay green, be safe, and have fun. And we will now proceed to develop some productive, successful practices, techniques, and fireworks effects and devices.